Presented by CP New York Sports, Amish Country Mets fan, and Flushing Sunny 41. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to all channels. What is up, everyone? Welcome to the Three Amazin Amigos Mets postgame show. It feels so good to be back with my co-hosts, Matt and Nelson. Want to shout these guys out real quick. We've been doing these a little bit less sporadically. Obviously, Nelson and I have been doing some of our own content here on the side, but always nice to have Matt join us here, one of the co-hosts of the post game. Hopefully, we do a little bit more of a consistent thing with these post games. So, welcome everyone. Just want to say, drop those comments. Make sure you hit that subscribe button to our channels, and hit that thumbs up. Appreciate the support. It's trying times in Mets land right now, but we got a nice little win to talk about tonight, amongst other things. First and foremost, want to shout out Nelson. Subscribe to his YouTube at Amish Country Mets fan, as well as follow him on Twitter at Amish Country Met. Got a lot going on. The guy's big time. He hit 200 subscribers. Now he's on his way to 215. So you're talking to Hollywood Nelson, and couldn't be happier to have him on board here today. Shout out Nelson. So go ahead and subscribe to his YouTube. Follow him on Twitter. My boy Matt, aka Pask. Follow him at Flushing Sunny 41 on Twitter, and visit his website, sunnydaysinflushing.com. Posting a lot of blogs, amongst other things. I think he's doing some Mets content. He's a Lions fan. So if you're an NFL fan by chance, he's going to be doing some NFL content coming up as well on there. Check him out. You won't regret it. And last but not least, can't forget the host. My Twitter and Instagram's at CPNY Sports. Subscribe in the bottom right corner of this video. If you're watching on my channel, you should see it automatically. On the bottom right, go ahead and click that subscribe button if you're new here. And if you've already subscribed, then I appreciate you. You're the best. I appreciate it. But, I appreciate you guys joining in. It's been a while since we've done this content together. I want to say what's up to both of you guys and get a little bit of an intro and see what you guys been up to. So, Matt, how are you? What's up, buddy? Nice 4-3 win that we got to talk about here. We'll get right into it. But first and foremost, how are you today?
I'm doing well. Hope both of you gentlemen are also doing well. Yeah, nice to see a win. Nice to see a little series win against Chicago. So, season not going the way we wanted, but it is what it is. And we're here to talk about it, right?
That's right. That's right. Nelson, what up, man? How are you?
I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little irritated tonight, but I'm good. I'm good.
Good.
No, but
If you haven't tuned in, go ahead, Nelson. Go ahead. I'm gonna let you finish.
Good to be back on here with Matt. It's been a while for sure. I see your shining, beautiful face every other day. I feel like so.
Yes, sir.
So don't miss you so much, but it's been a while with Matt. Good to be here, and at least we get to talk about a win. So that's always a good thing.
For sure, 100%. It's always a good time. We've been doing this since about late May. We started doing these post-game lives, maybe early June. Missed doing this, and it's always good to get back. And now we have a brand new name, the Three Amazin Amigos Mets post-game show. And hopefully we can do a little bit more. If not, every week, and try to get one every bi-weekly, and we'll see how it goes. But I know we're all busy with everything that we got going on in our lives, and it's just good to sit back and do this every once in a while. We got some regulars in the house. What up, Stevie Mac? He said, "What's up, dude?" Stevie Mac's always listening into the Interstate Mets Report. Shout out Stevie Mac 23. He's a real one. Appreciate you tuning in. We got Jay in the house. Somehow this team is more fun to watch than the pre-fire sale team. You know what? I'm not going to lie to you. I might agree with that, to be honest with you. You don't know what you're going to get with these guys. So shout out Jay tuning in. Young bullpen guys saved Ottavino. What up, M-Easy? Shout out M-Easy. Appreciate you tuning in. Yeah, Phil Bickford really did save. I'm not going to say that he's a young bullpen guy, but definitely a guy that got brought in here to eat innings from the Dodgers. Definitely saved Ottavino's behind, is what I'll say. So, what up, MEZ? Shout out you tuning in. Stevie Mac says we have no more expectations. Jay, basically just get to enjoy whatever randomness the Mets do for the rest of the season. 100%. We're in here for the short haul here the next 2 months. Whatever we get to witness is what we get to witness. We'll get into the highs and the lows and all that good stuff. We'll get into some of the acquisitions because we have not gotten a chance to get Matt's analysis on the trade deadline just yet. So we'll get into that after we do a little bit of a recap of the game. And wherever the night takes us in terms of this conversation is where it takes us. We don't have any notes. We don't have any scripts. This is purely conversational with my two buddies. This is why I love doing this, because whatever you get out of us here tonight is just off the cuff, off the brain stuff.
Forgot to tell me we weren't doing a script. I wrote a whole thing.
Oh, Nelson wrote a whole novel for you guys. So But yeah, man, let's get into it. Like I said, before we get into anything, make sure you are subscribing to, I think, Nelson and I's YouTube. I think, Matt, you also have a YouTube at Flushing Sunny 41 as well. I will shout that out during this live as well. I will not forget about that. You're trying to get the YouTube up and running. A lot of stuff on Twitter, a lot of stuff on sunnydaysinflushing.com right now. So I will shout that out. But I want to get your thoughts first and foremost. I want to have you dominate this kind of conversation because we haven't heard from you in so long. And the reason why we're here, honestly, is because we haven't heard from you in so long. Obviously, we chat amongst ourselves offline. We do all this and all that. But we really haven't heard from you. And we'll definitely get your thoughts on the deadline Mets moves and the team going forward in your opinion? Because if you've listened to the Interstate, Jay, Stevie, MEZ, they're all listening to the Interstate Mets Report on Tuesdays and Fridays, so they know what Nelson and I are spewing over there. So they know our thoughts and opinions on that. We got to hear your thoughts and opinions. I want to give you the spotlight. Let me know what you thought about this game today. Some highs, some lows, and whatever you want to talk about from this game. Nice little 4-3 win, in my opinion. Don't expect anything else out of the Mets. Like, this is just like a win here and there is where we'll take it. But let's hear your thoughts, Matt.
Yeah, nice win. Ottavino tried to give it away. That's Nelson. If anyone's not familiar with us, this is your first live show. That's Nelson's favorite player on the New York Mets. He's got Ottavino's number 0 tattooed on his shoulder. You can't see it because he's wearing sleeves. No, I mean, listen, it is what it is. The position we're in sucks, but it's good to see them playing these younger guys. It sucks that that Brett Beatty got sent down. I don't love that, but if they believe that's something that they could work on down in AAA. I mean, they know better than I do, but I guess maybe that's something we'll get into later. As of tonight, solid win. Pete put one in the seats. Alvarez got a hold of a few good pitches, just barely missed, a couple home runs tonight. And Jeff McNeil hit a home run, so that was nice. So overall, solid win. That's about it. And Pete Alonso stole a base. And probably would have stolen 2 if that wasn't a foul ball. So, not bad.
100% agree. Pete Alonso, I'll get to it in my spiel here. Pete Alonso's absolutely tearing the cover off the ball. He's got 4 home runs in the last 3 games in this Cubs series. A nice little series win for the Mets after some brutal series with the Orioles and Royals. Nelson, first and foremost, let's get your thoughts on this game, and then we'll talk about a little bit about the deadline, and then we cannot end this live without talking about Pete Alonso. So we'll go ahead and do that after.
Adam Ottavino is like my 15th cousin, so that's why he's my favorite player. This is all BS, people. I have no care for this man whatsoever. But no, it's a win is a win. At this point in this season, obviously it doesn't matter. But it's good to see Pete get hot. He's been hot for a while. Lindor got another hit. McNeil hit the homer. Alvarez got a hit. So, I mean, nice to see these guys playing well. I mean, I don't care so much about the Ortegas of the world and guys like that. But good to see the main guys doing their thing. Peterson, I mean, I guess he's a 3 or 4 inning starter, at least for the moment, which is, I mean, whatever. He did all right for the time he was in there. Grant Hartwig, shout out that dude. He's been pitching very well for us, and hopefully he's a good pen arm for us for the future. So I'm happy with that. That's about it, really. You know what's funny? Somehow the Mets went on a fire sale, are 10 games under 500, and yet still are 7 games out of the wild cards. It's just funny. I mean, I don't expect them to like actually make any noise in that, but it's just hilarious to see that they're like still there.
Yeah, and it's been that way for a little bit now too. They just can't seem to move either up or down from that 7 game mark. So, as promised, there's Flushing Sunny 41 on YouTube. Make sure you go subscribe to Matt's YouTube. Trying to get it off the ground. Going to be having a little bit more content on there, per his words. So, subscribe to the YouTube right there at Flushing Sunny 41. He's been a regular co-host on this post game live for a couple months now. So hopefully going to be streaming this to his YouTube at some point as well. And you'll have another Mets voice in your community and your subscriptions as well. So make sure you go ahead and do that. But no, I definitely agree with you. 100%. Let's get to some of these comments here beforehand. I already responded to this. MEZ says why can't he see some other comments in the chat? You should be able to. There should be a live chat where you can see everybody else's comments. So I'm not sure what's going on there. CV Max says, by the way, shout out the Polar Bear for absolutely ripping the ball. He's taking all the rumors personally now. I 100% agree, Stevie, and I think we'll get into that conversation here in just a little bit. So hold on to your horses there because Pete Alonso is hitting like Pete Alonso right now. So I grew up a Mets fan in the 70s. This is nostalgic for me. Shout out UJ. Like I said, I always like to come across somebody, obviously I'm a little bit younger. Am 24 years old. So I didn't get to see the peak Mets days way back when. I always appreciate coming across Mets fans that were around for those times. And it's always interesting to talk ball and get a perspective on things, especially in this new day and age where baseball just seems to be so driven by like analytics and, there's analytics department, this and that. And it's kind of, it's a lot sometimes. So it's always good to keep it to the basics. So shout out Jay. Appreciate you tuning in. Definitely appreciate your input and your comments as well. Stevie says, I'm not exactly sure the logistics, but I heard something about if Beatty stays in the minors for the rest of the year, then we can get another year of him for cheap. I can't speak on that. I haven't heard that. I don't know what that's about. Nelson, do you have anything to report on that? Because I see you
Yeah,
shaking your head. What's the deal with
yeah,
that?
it's totally true. If he hasn't hit the required number of games for the service time thing, so yeah, the Mets might be playing a little service time manipulation with both Mauricio and Beatty. So I mean, it is what it is. It's the name of the game. If they do it, fine. If I don't think it matters much because of Cohen's deep pockets, but at the same time, if you can get an extra year of these guys for cheap, if you do this, keep them both, then it doesn't hurt.
Matt, what do you think about the most recent Beatty demotion? Do you have any thoughts on it? And what do you think about his most recent comments about potentially not being as locked in the major leagues and the necessity of it compared to the minor leagues and his experience in the minor leagues? Because guess what? Brett Beatty has been a phenomenal hitter on all levels in minor leagues. So if you take a look at his stats, he hasn't hit below 270. And a lot of people on Twitter were calling him an experiment, which I think is ridiculous to say. Some of the comments may be a little bit uneasy that he made personally to the media, but Brett Beatty is by all means not an experiment. So, what did you think about the most recent Brett Beatty news?
I didn't see what his quotes were, but so if you want to pull him up at any point and interrupt either one of you, feel free. Uh, in terms of an experiment, like I don't think you draft a guy in the first round. I mean, I know it's baseball, like it's not football or basketball, but you don't draft a guy in the first round to be an experiment. I do think they think that there's a future with him. Um, yeah, Nelson, I could kind of see that where like maybe they're manipulating, but at the same rate, just like you said, like Cohen's got the deep pockets, and like they also pulled him up. Like if they wanted to really manipulate his time, I think they would have waited. I think the date was like sometime in mid-May. There was some date. Somebody, a reporter on Twitter had posted a date. Maybe it was June 5th. Like had they waited till June 5th to call him up, then they would have gotten that extra year. I mean, they called him up pretty early this year. I think he got demoted because he wasn't playing well. And I think that they believe that if they send him down to AAA, they could maybe slow the game down a little more for him, maybe help him see something a little clearer and work through it. That David Wright was talking about it a couple days ago on WFAN, and he kind of said the same thing, how he went through some struggles early on in his career, and it's better to go through that when you're 22, 23, 24 years old and there's no more expectations for the season, as opposed to going through that a year or two from now when you're in the hunt for a playoff spot or a pennant race or whatever it may be, and you're struggling. In terms of Mauricio, I was listening to Joe DeMayo from SNY talk on the Mets pod about when we may see him. He was saying something about, well, I got to go back and see the exact reasoning. Something about August 19th, August 20th. If they wait till that date, that something about him being, I guess, still eligible for Rookie of the Year next year, if he were to produce at that level. And same thing, I think it's a manipulation basically of service time. So hopefully, I mean, that's my hope out of all of this. Like people on Twitter arguing over who should play third base and left field. These guys are so young and like they're all tremendous athletes. Like they're gonna figure it out somewhere. Like wherever it is, if it's left field, if it's right field, if it's second, if it's third, these guys will all figure it out somewhere. They may not win Gold Gloves, they may not win Platinum Gloves, it may not be Nolan Arenado, but they'll figure it out. So like, I'm not so worried about the gloves. I'm more worried about, I want them to see major league hitting. I want them to get major league at bats because that's what's going to progress them. So honestly, my whole focus the rest of this season, outside of seeing the progression of some of these young guys, Alvarez, Vientos, finally getting his shot. When Mauricio comes up, make this guy play the rest of the season. No days off. Let this guy play. And I don't care where it is. I don't care if you put him out at second base, if you put him out at third base and he makes an error every night. I really don't care. Put him out there, give him major league at-bats, and let him play in the field. Because keeping him down in AAA, batting 350 or whatever he's batting, like that's like playing your little brother and pick up basketball and thinking you're going to get a scholarship. Like you can only go so far. Like if you're dominating the minor leagues, you can only go so far. It's not going to make you any better. You've clearly mastered that. So if it is a service time thing, whenever that date is, August 19th, 20th, 22nd, call this kid up and play him. And next year, play him. But we'll get into next year later. I'm sorry. I digress.
Yeah, and you're right. We've been saying it for the last couple of shows that we've been doing on the interstate. August 19th is the deadline to maintain that rookie status for the players for next year. We saw with Brett Beatty last year as well, when he came up after that August deadline to maintain his rookie status for this year. It is August 19th. So I understand why Ronnie Mauricio is not up right now. August 19th is fastly approaching in terms of Ronnie Mauricio. So we'll see what happens there. Brett Beatty's comments were something along the lines of him not being able to focus on every single pitch. Something about I don't have the direct quote in front of me because I'm not gonna I don't have that. Nelson, if you have that, then you can go ahead and share it. But I don't have the direct quote. It was just something along the lines of it's hard to focus on every single pitch in the major leagues, and it's much more of a necessity in the major leagues than the minor leagues. And there's something to that tune. So, um, but yeah, guys, Mets win 4-3 here. We're gonna get into a little bit of the trade deadline talk here as well. Some of the prospects, some of the moves that we did. Just want to get your guys' opinions here because before we get into the trades that we saw, Pete Alonso. Let's talk about Pete Alonso. First of all, actually, you know what, Nelson, Jeff McNeil, home run tonight. Give me your Jeff McNeil updates. What do you think?
I'm still not a Jeff McNeil fan, but unlike some haters, I will give him respect and credit when he does well, and he's hitting or a little bit lately, better than he had been for sure. So he gets his credit. That's where I'm at with Jeff McNeil. I still wouldn't, just given the influx of middle infield talent. I mean, it's a little early to give up on him, but we have so many guys that he's kind of going to be blocking. Let's be honest, that if he can get his trade value up, I definitely look to trade him. But it wasn't a good time to trade him this year. It may not be a good time to trade him this offseason. We'll see. But I think he's expendable. I just honestly do. The contract's not bad. After this year, he's got 3 years left. The money's okay. You could probably find a team that would want him. I'm pretty damn sure. But yeah, that's my Jeff McNeil status update. I'm not gonna hate the guy. And you don't see me like I don't sit here on Twitter and like trash a dude. When every once in a while I would say, yeah, I don't like him, and I would trade him. Like I don't like the temper tantrum stuff. I've been on record saying that. That just drives me crazy. So yeah, he's not my personal favorite, but if he's doing well, then good for him.
No, I completely agree. And I agree with you that Jeff McNeil and Matt, we will get to your Jeff McNeil opinion. I agree with you with the Mets trade deadline that we just saw. Um, there's a lot more depth that makes Jeff McNeil expendable in the last 3 years. I don't know if his contract kicks in this year or the year afterwards. So I think that the depth that we've acquired, though, regardless of it, makes him a little bit more expendable. Obviously, we've seen both sides of Jeff McNeil and what he has to offer. We saw the batting champ, Jeff McNeil. We saw a Jeff McNeil that struggles at times. A la this year, he's still batting 254 or 255. But the OPS isn't there. Obviously, the power numbers are never going to be there, but he just hasn't looked like the Jeff McNeil that we're used to seeing, right? Borderline 300 hitter every year. And it makes fans wonder. The temper tantrums, like you said, after every out, makes fans wonder. You can't sell on this guy right now, even if you wanted to, because it's selling low. You would have to sell on him high, which would mean probably the beginning of 2024. If he gets off to a hot start, you could convince a team to take some money, probably pay some money for them as well. And you get yourselves, a former batting champion. Let us get maybe some more prospects. That is one conversation that we have been having, Matt. I'm curious to get, before we get into the Pete Alonso discussion, I'm curious to get your thoughts. And then Stevie also says, by the way, anybody watching, you are more than welcome to drop comments. Please drop comments. We will display those comments and we will talk about those comments and we will address your comments or questions that you have right here and we'll display it on the screen, give you a little bit of shout out too. Steve Mac 23 says McNeil said a week ago he's changed up his batting approach. I didn't see those comments. I don't know what he's changed, but that is an interesting comment. I think next year's McNeil's last year as a Met if Acuna and Gilbert look ready to go. Stevie Mac 23, fantastic point. Guys that are going to be major league ready soon next year, maybe not the beginning of the season, but maybe mid-season. These guys that are in Double-A could get a quick promotion. And to be honest with you, I don't know if the Mets start to stray away from the Triple-A sort of showcase that they got going on, but maybe start moving some guys that are ready for Triple-A to go right into the majors. Maybe they might start to emulate that sort of process. I don't know, but Acuna and Gilbert are the most ready to go. And that fills 2 spots. That fills second base and outfield primarily. So where's Jeff McNeil going to go? Because he's not going to DH. Matt, what is your Jeff McNeil analysis? What is your outlook on Jeff McNeil moving forward to this team? He obviously just signed a brand new 4-year contract this offseason. Are you willing to part ways with him at a good price if he let's face it, it's not happening this offseason. I think everyone knows that. If he goes and starts raking in the beginning of 2024, maybe carries that through close to the trade deadline, is that a guy you're willing to part with the talent coming up? Before you get to that, the POD podcast says, "Sup, fellas. Appreciate you tuning in. Thank you so much for joining in. We appreciate the comment. Any Mets comments you have, please leave them. We will get to those shortly. Matt, Jeff McNeil thoughts. I'll be right back in 2 seconds, but I am still listening. Let me hear Jeff McNeil.
Yeah, I know, because we had this discussion probably back in June, right, Nelson? Am I right?
Yeah, all right.
I don't think I know. I know when we talked about this in June, I think I called Nelson crazy for wanting to trade Jeff McNeil or bringing up the idea of potentially trading him. Given the return that we've gotten from the Verlander trade, from the Scherzer trade, now with Mauricio slowly making his way up, I don't. It pains me to say it because we watched Jeff come up around the same time, about a year prior to Alonso coming up. Like, we've watched Jeff grow. We've watched him go from this guy that, like, oh yeah, he's a pretty consistent slappy hitter, to winning a batting title last year. Like, I know not everybody cares about batting average, but like, that's, to me, that's still a huge deal. Like, to in a day and age where the average player in Major League Baseball is batting 245, 242, to go out and bat 300 is incredible. Over 300, it's incredible. And it's not, that's the one thing I'll disagree with you, Nelson, is that I don't think that that's particularly expendable. Like, those guys are not, I don't want to say they grow on trees, because that's not what you meant, but they're a little more hard to find now. Acuna comes up and he's a second baseman. And from what I've seen, he definitely provides more speed. He doesn't seem to provide so we're told, the consistent hitting that Jeff typically has, but the power numbers are there, the glove seems to be there, and the speed is there. I mean, Jeff's contract is very team friendly, right? There's a lot of teams, especially in the NL and the AL Central, that don't want to spend money. Forget the luxury tax. They don't even want to go over 100 million, right? So if you're telling me that you could turn Jeff McNeil into, like, maybe, I mean, I don't even know. Like, I can't even speculate. Something that we need, right? Whether that be a bullpen piece like a David Bednar, who's got 3 years left, right? Maybe a guy coming up in double or triple A that's projected, number 3, number 4 starting pitcher. Like, yeah, you kind of need to explore that, right? Because as much as I love Jeff, right, as much as I love cheering for him at Citi Field, Acuna's got to go somewhere. Mauricio, hypothetically, has got to go somewhere unless they want to flip him. Drew, Gilbert. There's a lot of guys that are pretty close to coming up, and you got to find space for them. So yeah, if there's a deal in place, I can't stress enough how much it kills me to say it, because I love Jeff. Like, I like, the temper tantrums are annoying, but, like, man, there's a fire inside that guy. Like, and you see it. You see how bad he wants it. And you see how much he gets along with Alonso and some. I mean, used to be Conforto and some of these guys that have been here for so long. Like it's just nice, and I think it's just something that we have as Mets fans, and I think Yankee fans have it too. Like you have an affinity to these homegrown guys that came up through your system, that progressed through the majors, and yeah, I mean, I don't want to see him go, but that's my heart talking, right? Like my heart doesn't want to see him go, but in actuality, if Acuna's ready, like yeah, you gotta explore those deals. Now, the one thing I will say, which once again I'm going to agree with Nelson, Chris, I don't know if you said this, like trading Jeff in the offseason or at the beginning of next year is like selling a 2017 Honda Accord with the check engine light on. Like, why would you do that? You know what I mean? Go get that fixed, clean the car up, and then sell it. Right? Like Jeff's value isn't really there right now because he has no power. He's a guy that's made a living on being a slap, opposite field 300 hitter playing above average defense. He hasn't done any of that this year. He's been awful in every aspect. Every aspect of his game has been pitiful. And it shows in his attitude, it shows in his temper tantrums and all that stuff. So I'm in favor of trading him, but let's be smart about it. Let's wait till May of next year when he's hopefully batting like 295 and flashing the leather at second base or right field. And then you offload him. And the one more thing I'll say before you guys go, the nice thing that we really take for granted though about Jeff that we need to remember, and I'm not saying that you probably can't replicate it, but I'm not saying you can't have other guys do it, but like what's so great about Jeff is that even like as shitty as he's playing right now, the guy moves from second base to left field to right field to third base. He's I don't know if you guys know this. He's the emergency catcher. If both catchers go down, Jeff McNeil puts on pads and he's the catcher, right? So like when he was extended here, he was promised by the front office that second base was his position. He wasn't moving. Like that was it. He was not going to move. And pretty quickly into this season, they put him into left field. I think at this point, he might have like 50% of his time in the outfield in comparison to what he's got, maybe a little less, maybe like 45% of his time. And like, that's a guy that could be complaining to the media, that could be leaking things to reporters. He could be doing a bunch of things that he's not doing. He's just grabbing a glove and going out there playing. Like a lot of guys would not do that. A lot of guys would not do that in a million years, right? I'm not saying it's the same situation, but do not forget when A-Rod came to New York, how quickly Derek Jeter said, I'm not moving, I play shortstop. Even though we all know A-Rod was a far better shortstop, right? The captain, the guy that everybody loves in New York, and rightfully so, first ballot Hall of Famer, the guy refused to move his position. Jeff McNeil, anytime they tell him to play somewhere else, he just goes and plays it. So that's a nice thing to have. I'm not saying that's a reason to not trade him. I'm just saying
he hasn't done that particularly well this year.
Huh?
Let's not forget he hasn't done that particularly well this year. He moved around and he looked pretty crappy everywhere he moved around.
Right, but a lot of guys that move around like that will tell you like, oh, I'm making errors because I'm not playing the same position every day. My position was second base. They promised me second base and I'm playing left field. So like I'm just saying a lot of guys, they get on a high horse and they complain. Jeff hasn't done any of that. He just goes and he plays. So I personally appreciate that. I'm not saying that's a reason to not trade him, but that's my piece on Jeff.
Oh, I definitely agree with you. He has not done that utility role particularly well this year. We saw him do it well and exceed last year. And I think that's the common theme of the 2023 New York Mets is that a lot of players are just not in their form from 2022. And we see it with Marte. We see it with a bunch of guys. It's up and down this roster, which is why this season has been washed. But it sounds like you have another trade Jeff McNeil soldier in your growing army, Nelson. So we have that moving for us as well. So we'll see what happens with Jeff McNeil moving forward. We'll see what happens. I'm gonna get to some of these comments. We're gonna talk about a little bit about Pete Alonso. We'll get you guys' opinions because we see that he's on this hot streak now, and then we'll talk about the offseason moves here shortly before we finally start to get it wrapped up. But appreciate everybody tuning in. MEZ says, when they bring up Gilbert, I hope they put him in center field and move Nimmo to left field. Hopefully, Nimmo doesn't complain about moving to left field. No, I completely agree with you, MEZ. I think that especially as Nimmo goes and gets a little bit older in that contract that he just got, a guy like Gilbert is going to be the perfect slotting guy for center field, not only because he has a better glove than Nimmo, and Nimmo, like, bar none, has had one of the better defensive rebounds over the last couple years on the Mets. But Drew Gilbert has a cannon of an arm as well. Let's not forget that. And Brandon Nimmo, let's face it, he has a noodle arm. Not someone you really want in center field for those close plays to throw runners out. Brandon Nimmo is more served to left field because you want your center fielder and right fielder to have a little bit of the stronger arm. I don't know why that is, but growing up playing baseball, I just know that those guys have better arms typically than the left fielder. So yeah, I completely agree with that. MEZ also says that Paul O'Neill also used to have temper tantrums as well, to which our buddy Nelson said I wasn't a fan of his either, but he was also a way better baseball player. I think he's saying than McNeil was, so or is. So 100% agree. And then Jay says Super Joe is now Super Jeff. Nelson, any sort of rebuttals on the McNeil takes? One, and given Pete Alonso's recent hot surge, I think Pete Alonso's up to like 227. I think he's up to 34 bombs. I think he's up to like mid to high 80s RBIs. What's the Pete Alonso extension? I know we talked about it on the interstate literally yesterday. So if you want to reiterate those comments on here, you're more than welcome to. Any more analysis from you on Pete Alonso, and then we'll get to Matt on Pete Alonso before we get into the Mets deadline moves.
Yeah, I don't really. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes,
Or,
now I can hear
yeah.
you.
I don't really care to get into the Pete Alonso thing again. I sign him to whatever. I personally would would hope to try to keep it to closer to 24, 25 million. But he's your guy. The fans are gonna freaking lose their crap if you don't sign him. So I just sign him, whatever. I do think there's a walk away point, but I mean some people can agree or disagree. But for McNeil, I mean, not really I mean, I just think he's just not. He doesn't do anything. I mean, unless he is going to hit 300 every year, which he hasn't proven that he can. He's been riding this kind of roller coaster. Unless he's going to do that, he doesn't really do anything else particularly great. So that's, to me, that is expendable because it's like, okay, yeah, he moves around the field, but if you got guys that can play their positions, you shouldn't need it that much. Yeah, like I said, though, and Matt said it as well, you got to wait till he builds up some value before you even think about doing that. So he's here for now. So is what it is. I hope, like, I hope he helps the team. Like, I'm not going to root against the dude. I will never root against. There's very few Mets I've ever rooted against. There's like, I could count them on one hand. It's probably less than 5.
Marcus Stroman. I hate that guy.
I wouldn't say Marcus Stroman. I hated Tom Glavine. Tom
Fair.
Glavine is my number one. Like, he was a narc. He was a brave. I don't care what anybody says. That dude came here to ruin my life. And I just hated Tom Glavine. I had no love for that dude whatsoever. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see. There's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot depends on how these prospects perform. A lot depends on what our president of baseball operations thinks, and whoever that is. We assume it's Stearns. Hopefully it is. So yeah, if he comes in and he's a McNeil guy, then we're probably going to see McNeil stick around. If he's not, then he might try to move him for, like you said, a bullpen arm, or we're going to need starting pitching. We got 2 starters heading into next year. So yeah, it's all stuff we got to figure out. So we'll see what happens.
No, I definitely agree. If you guys are watching, make sure you hit that thumbs up for us. Hit that thumbs up. Keep commenting. Subscribe to the channels if you haven't. Definitely appreciate you. Nelson, we've given our Pete Alonso takes this whole entire season. Whether his performance was, now the contract extensions. Now we saw a report saying that the Mets told teams at the deadline that he was available at a very unrealistic high price, but available nonetheless, which is important to note. MEZ says 8 years, 216 million will always be the max for Alonso. If he turns it down, I would move him. That's $27 million AAV. I said personally, my realistic goal for an Alonso extension would be 210 over 8, which is just over 26. Goldschmidt is at $26 million a year. Freeman's at 27. Knowing that, Matt, we know that the Mets have put Alonso on the block briefly. It was never going to be plausible that they were going to move him on a deadline, but they wanted to see what teams would bite, presumably, with their offers. Now that he has only 1 year of control left after this year in the 2024 season, do you think a Pete Alonso extension happens? 1. 2, when does it happen? 3, how much money a year would you be willing to give him, knowing that Freeman's making 27, Goldschmidt's at 26, and Matt Olson, who's outperforming pretty much everybody, maybe with the exception of Freddie Freeman, because Freddie Freeman's a unicorn of a first baseman, pretty much. Matt Olson is outperforming every other first baseman not named Freddie Freeman at $21 million to the Braves, which personally I have said is not, you should not expect to see Pete Alonso take less than 8 years or 7 or 8 years. He's not going to take 6 because he wants that 78-year mark. And I said that it's not realistic to compare Matt Olson's $21 million AAV to anything that Pete Alonso is going to get, because Matt Olson took a team-friendly deal. Matt, I want your full-fledged Pete Alonso, I guess, take, because at this point you could, if you were to say that you would want to, I don't think you're going to say this because we've had a somewhat of a discussion of this. I don't think you're going to say that you want to trade him, but there has been discussions. What's the take, man?
I think first and foremost, the Mets did the right thing by taking calls. I mean, and I think this is the New York media we're talking about, right? Every team does this, every deadline. It doesn't matter. Do you think for 1 second that teams never called for Jacob deGrom 5 years ago and we just hung up the phone? No, you always listen. It doesn't mean that a guy is particularly on the trade block. It doesn't mean that you're willing to move from him. But if you're running an organization like this, you always have to listen. It doesn't matter who it is, right? It doesn't matter. I don't want to ever see Lindor go, but if someone calls me about Lindor, yeah, I want to hear what you think you want to give up. Now, whatever you're going to give up to me is probably not worth it, but I'm doing the organization a disservice if I hang the phone up, right? I agree with you, Nelson. There's a walking away point, and I think the way the Mets avoid the walking away point is don't let him hit free agency, right? If you let him hit free agency, you're probably going to hit that walking away point. Because guys that like aren't massive defensive liabilities and aren't like a problem off the field and hit 40 home runs a year don't really grow on trees. Like that's a rare thing, and we have it, right? So for you to wait to free agency, you're just asking to pay more. That's just what it is, right? Like you could probably get him, especially on and it's crazy that we're talking about this, right? Like this is a year that Pete might just hit 50 home runs, and we're talking about it being a down year because it is. It's a down year. His OPS isn't where it should be. His average isn't where it should be, and he's made a couple of errors this year, right? So like this is a down year for Pete Alonso, but it's still a year he's gonna hit for maybe 50 home runs. I don't think they let him to make a long story short, I don't think they let him walk. I think what you may see with him is you may see them add an extra year onto the deal like they did with Nimmo, right? I think they wanted Nimmo at like 6 or 7 and he got 8, just so they could lower that AAV. Like Nimmo had more money, like from an AAV standpoint, he had more money on the table somewhere else. But the Mets basically threw another year on, knowing full well, like, and that's the other thing that we need to understand as Met fans and as baseball fans, right? Like we look at these contracts like, oh my God, a 10-year contract. Like just because we brought him up before, Lindor. You didn't sign Lindor expecting all-star play in year 9 and 10. You signed him for like the first 6 to 7 years of that deal. And then whatever you get after is what it is. Like to get superstars, because Pete Alonso, Francisco Lindor, those guys are super, almost to an extent. Brandon Nimmo is a star. I wouldn't call him a superstar, but he's a star in Major League Baseball. Like 20 out of the 30 teams would kill to have Brandon Nimmo on their team. You're telling me the New York Yankees, with all the problems they have, with Aaron Judge not being able to stay on the field, and that guy Bauer and McKinney playing left, they would kill to have a Brandon Nimmo on their team, right? So, like, guys like this, you don't let walk out the door, and you sign them before they go to free agency. I agree with you. Somewhere in the 8 years, 200 million, 210 million. You throw some incentives in there, and it's with Pete. It's like pretty self-explanatory, man. Like, dude, you have the opportunity to hit 500 home runs in this uniform. You do that, you're a shoo-in for the Hall of Fame. We're gonna retire your number. Like you're a kind of bigger Mike Piazza in a way. Like Mike Piazza came here when the Mets went to a World Series around that time period. So like, yes, Piazza was like a bigger deal, but you have the opportunity to surpass everything he's ever, honestly, anything every Met's ever done. Like I don't think we have a Met, like outside of like not counting Gary Sheffield, but like really like lifetime Mets or like long period Mets that are in the 500 home run club. Like I don't think there's any of them. We've never had a player win the MVP award, which I'm not saying Pete will do. But before I could go on a tangent, I think the smartest thing to do, don't let him hit free agency, sign him in the offseason. And if that means signing him to an 8-year deal, even a 9-year deal, so be it. Who cares? Who cares? If that means lowering the AAV, I mean, does it really matter? 10 years from now, does it really, like, what's $24 million going to be 10 years from now? Is it really going to be that much? Like if you don't want to pay him $28 million, like, and you figure out a way that you could extend him, you know what I'm saying? So that's kind of where my head's at. Find a way to keep, and I think they will be. Like, these guys aren't stupid. You walk around Citi Field, like I'm there every weekend. It's Alonso, Lindor, and DeGrom jerseys, and then like the classics. That's what it is. Like, these guys aren't dumb. They know who puts asses in seats. Home runs. Home runs do that. And what does Pete Alonso do? Even in a down year, he hits home runs. So you got to
No,
do that.
Matt, great points. Great points on all accounts. I think Pete gets this extension. Um, Real quick about his age, 28 years old. We're not talking about a 10-year, 11-year, 12-year contract in his 40s. We're talking about 8 years, which you put him at 36 years old. Fringe, if you really want to lower the AAV $1 or $2 million a year to get him for that ninth year and sell him on it. Listen, unless there's someone willing to give Pete like 12 years until he's age 40, the Mets have the stronghold. They can offer 9 years at him being 37 years old and give him that extra year, maybe that lower the AAV down from 26, 27 with what the big dogs are making and Goldschmidt and Freeman, and get him at 25, 24. You'll have him for an extra year at 37. The DH exists for a reason in the NL, and in the NL now. I don't think he's going to lose his power over the course of his career. We'll see what happens. So I'm not really afraid about losing Pete Alonso. To be honest, I'm not worried about his bat declining. Everyone likes to point out the average because the average baseball average, like that was the main knock on Lindor for a while this season was his average. Lindor's boosted his average to the 240s, almost 250. I think it's at 246 last time I checked. Pete Alonso's back up to 227 after hitting about what 214, 215 at his lowest. So listen, the guy's got 34 home runs. He's still got upper 80s RBIs in August. You know what you're going to get out of Pete. I agree with you. I think it happens. I think it should even happen this offseason. I don't care with the rough patches what you saw out of Pete Alonso, to be honest, this year. I think you have to just send the deal in because listen, I don't know, man. I love Pete Alonso, and this is not just my fanhood talking, although it could very well be just my biased fanhood talking. But I think he really does serve a purpose for the Mets moving forward in terms of being a building block for the names that we're about to mention on this next slide and the prospects moving forward. I really do think you have to have a core for these prospects to come up and fill around. And I think Lindor, Pete, Nimmo, and Alvarez are the four guys that you should retain in this lineup by all costs, whether it's contract or just simply just keeping them in the lineup long term, because obviously Alvarez is not going to be due a contract for a couple of years, to complement the names that we're going to be seeing on this next slide. So I think it happens. The AAV is a tough one. The Mets have all the flexibility in the world, like they did with the Nimmo extension that we saw this offseason to give Pete maybe an extra year for him to remain in the Mets uniform. But I think it has to happen. Despite the average, he's still going to have 40 plus home runs. I don't think he hits 50, but he's going to have 40 plus, and he's going to have 100 plus RBIs. So we'll see what happens. Before we move into the next topic, which is the Mets trade deadline discussion, because we haven't gotten Matt's opinions on the trade deadline. Nelson will have some more caveats here. Nelson, also, I know you're watching the prospects list change. If you have any caveats to the prospects list that's changed or anything that you want to talk about, anybody who you want to talk about outside of who we see on this next slide, then please feel free to tune in. Let's see here. We have a couple comments I want to catch on. We got our boy Kenny Fry here from the Batcave. Make sure you guys check him out. He does a good show on Out of the Box Sports. He had Frank the Tank on earlier today. I saw on his live stream. So give Kenny Fry, Out of the Box Sports, the Batcave, a subscribe on YouTube. If you want to throw your at in here, Kenny, I'll shout that out as well. I appreciate you. You're always shouting us out too on your stream. So I definitely appreciate that. I get why they were iffy not extending Nemo earlier, but it definitely cost them a lot more money in the long run, letting him hit free agency. Steve, that's a great point. It was because of his injuries, 100% without a doubt. That's why they were iffy on not extending him, and it did cost them more money in the long run. Because guess what? If they extended Nemo maybe a year or two earlier, they would have saved themselves millions, but that was not That wasn't feasible. So, let's see. I think if they keep Pete, he and Lindor will get this team to the World Series. I'm so impressed with Lindor's composure and leadership throughout this season. Lindor started off very slow. Everybody knows Lindor started off slow. If you're on Twitter, you know he started off slow because Lindor has this slew of haters that Nelson has been pointing out every single step of the way. And I completely agree. He has remained. Listen, Lindor's on a tear right now. And he's not only been on a tear on the field, but he's remained composed during his media pressers where you see all these other guys, including Nimmo, and Max Scherzer, another example, when he got, before he got traded or even after he got traded, start to blabber on to the media about this, and that about the team moving forward. Lindor is exactly the type of professionalism, whether they want to give him his credit for being a leader or not, which I very well think he is. We saw the video of him talking to Vientos earlier today before the game. He is the very epitome, I should say, of how you handle the New York media. I think Pete Alonso is another guy. I think his extension, I guess, in question has been something that's been weighing on him when we've been seeing a little bit of different answers from Pete. But all in all, ever since Pete's been in a major league uniform with the Mets, he has also been alongside Lindor, the epitome of how you answer New York media questions. Always, those two guys are the ones that the media are always going to go to. McNeil, yes, he answers questions. He doesn't answer questions like Lindor, and he doesn't answer questions like Pete. If the Mets are ever in question about something, Lindor and Pete are going to be the two guys that the media is always going up to. MEZ says no 9 years for big burly guy like Alonso. Sorry. I think it's plausible with the DH. Alonso's not a stud on the defensive side by any means. He has his highlight plays. I get it. But eventually, even if you sign him to a long-term deal, I fully expect him to move over to a DH slot at some point in his career when he gets a little bit older anyways. Jay says it's so nice to have Cohen as an owner. Wilpon, I think he had a typo there. Wilpon would never keep anyone just because of the money. 100% agree. Wilpon and Cohen, we are not going to even have that sort of discussion. Kenny's big balling Pete Alonso. 8 years, 250 to 275. That's a little there, Kenny. I respect the numbers. I don't think Pete Alonso breaks the first baseman's market by that much. I don't think it happens. Freddie Freeman is MVP caliber type player making $27 million a year. If anybody breaks the first baseman's AAV market, it's going to be Vlad Guerrero Jr. in my humble opinion, and it's not going to be by that much. I think Vlad might push $30 million a year. I don't see Pete getting there. Would I be surprised if Pete got 28 just because Cohen's pockets run like that? I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if he is the highest paid first baseman just for laughs and giggles. I wouldn't be surprised. But realistically, we're looking at 25, 26 M's for Pete. And Nelson says 24. So we're looking around there. Nick, shout out Nick. Appreciate you tuning in. I don't think Cohen will let him go. A homegrown Met. The people will love him and potentially he's a potentially Hall of Fame Met. 100% well said, Nick. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate you. Some more comments here before we get into our next topic of discussion. Why would you offer him 9 years when there's only like 4 other teams that might sign him on the open market? Giants, Phillies, Red Sox, and maybe Mariners. Nelson, do you want to tackle this one?
I wouldn't offer him 9 years. So I actually completely agree with MEZ. I don't think you can't bid against yourself either. And there's not a ton of teams that need a first baseman, especially not a ton of deep pocket teams that need a first baseman. The Giants may very well be your biggest competitor. So just be wary of just outbidding yourself for if it isn't necessary is my thing. Also, the fact that, let's face it, he's not very good at first. The average isn't so much a concern for me. I mean, I don't want the guy hitting like Kyle Schwarber. Let's be honest. I don't want that guy on my team, regardless of the home runs. But I'm not a huge average guy per se. The combination of low average and spotty defense is what scares me, because I don't want to be paying a DH almost $30 million. So that's my only hesitation with Pete. But like I said, pay him. I wouldn't go 9 years, but if they do, I'm also not going to lose my mind about it. But I try to keep it. I mean, I try to keep it 7 years, 6 or 7 years if I could. I know that's probably not realistic, but yeah, 8 years to something that makes sense. I don't know. I hope they figure it out in the offseason, because if it lingers, for whatever that reason it may be, then maybe we do see him traded next deadline. Let's be real. If he hasn't signed a contract, maybe they think at that point, if he's not going to sign, then we need to get something for him. So
if you let it linger, it's gonna get. I mean, that's why I emphasize getting him this offseason, because if you let it linger to next year, you're gonna have to either pay a 9th year or have to give him an insane AAV, because that's like what we often forget is that it's not always like, Chris, you're going in the right direction of what other guys at that position make. That's absolutely what goes on. But like, these things are about leverage, right? So like, I know it's a different sport, but it's true in this conversation. Kirk Cousins for the Minnesota Vikings was never worth $30 million. You could argue he's still not worth, well, maybe he is, but like back then he wasn't. But he got 3 years, 30 a year, fully guaranteed, because the Vikings had just made it to a championship game and they believed they were a quarterback away, right? So it's all about leverage, right? If you let him play out next season, you don't trade him, you don't re-sign him, and then he goes to free agency, and oh my God, it just so happens he bats 270 and put 47 balls over the wall. Yeah, he's going to get like 30 a year. And not because he deserves that, not because he's better than Freddie Freeman, but, and also the Freddie Freeman contract, kind of weird. Like, it's a lot of deferred money, but the AAV is what we look at, right? Like, it's not that he's worth more than Freddie Freeman. It's because there's nobody else there, and he's the hottest girl at the dance. Like, that's what it is, right? Like, she's single and she's there. She might not be the most attractive girl in the room, but she's single, and if we pay enough, we could dance with her. That's what it's all about. So to avoid all of that, you have him in your building. You can wine and dine him. And you just, I think part of it is you sell him on like, dude, your name could be in the rafter. Like, I think money talks, no doubt about it. But there's kind of also a point where it's like, is there really a difference? For some guys, there are, right? For some guys, there is a difference. For other guys, is there really a difference between 26.5 million and 28.3 million? Especially like if you're talking about San Francisco, you look at their tax code, look at our tax code, how much money are you actually taking home each year? Things like that. Like, when you really break it down and you kind of sell it to them, like, dude, this is a $500,000 difference. Like, you can get your name in the rafters. You could retire as one of us. Do you want this, or do you want to go out in San Francisco? Like, things like that. But you avoid every bit of that if you just resign. Like, honestly, if I were running things, I would resign. I wouldn't even wait till the offseason. Resign him right now. We've seen enough. What's the difference between waiting for the end of the year or I mean, whatever. If that's what they want to do it. But like, just don't.
To that point, Matt, and Pete Alonso is really only going to get his bargaining rights back up here, and we're starting to see that now. He's going, like, you're talking about re-signing him at a low versus high. Now, so I'm gonna let you go here, and then we'll move on to the next topics and some comments. But do you have any rebuttals onto what Matt's?
my only point to why not sign him right now and why they might be waiting a little bit is because regardless of what Steve Cohen said, if you're making a run at Shohei, which I'm going to be honest, I think Steve Cohen's going to offer him money. whether he takes it or not, that's a different story. But if you're making that run and giving that much money away to Shohei Ohtani, you probably want to wait to do that before you go talk to Pete. I think maybe, I don't know. I could be wrong, but I feel like you're spending that much money on Shohei. If he does decide to come here, then you got to be maybe a little more careful about how much you give Pete. Maybe not. I don't know. Steve is Mr. Moneybags. He may not give a damn. But at some point, there's got to be a limit, I would think. That's my only point there.
I agree wholeheartedly, Nelson. Wholeheartedly.
Yeah, and it's a good point as well. We'll see what happens with the Ohtani sweepstakes. We'll see what happens with the Alonso sweepstakes. And it's not even a sweepstakes. It's either you sign him or you don't. And I don't know, man. I just think Pete Alonso's, and I've said it before, I'll say it again. I think Pete Alonso's sample size of what we've seen of him being a complete hitter to go along with his power is just it trumps what we've seen this season when he's been pulling off the ball a little bit. And that's just how I view Pete Alonso. I like Pete Alonso. I think he's a good guy. He goes and answers the media questions exactly how he's supposed to, but he's a hell of a talent. And his defense isn't great. I get that. If there's some deal you can work up with him and say, hey, listen, we'll still let you play first base, maybe a little bit less because we have, this guy Kevin Parada coming up. I don't know what Pete Alonso's reaction is going to be coming, with that. But if you can coax him to be more of a DH and first baseman through the majority of whatever years he signs for the next contract, then listen, sign me up for that because you'll be hard pressed to find another better DH than Pete Alonso, to be honest with you. So we'll see what happens with that. Let's see here. Kenny Fry says 1,000% agree with you, Chris, about the core four. I said Pete, Lindor, Alvarez, and Nimmo is the core four there. Let's see here. Lindor proved himself beyond question after the trade deadline. Haters, shut it. I agree with you 100%. He has been on a tear recently. Kenny Fry also says chicks dig the long ball. Pete Alonso is part of that category. I 100% agree with you. And then shout out to OOT Box Sports and at the Batcave _ OOTBSE. That is Kenny's YouTube platform. Make sure you subscribe if you're watching this to Kenny's YouTube platform. I think he's on Twitter as well, but Out of the Box Sports and the Batcave _ Out of the Box Sports. Make sure you're subscribing to that. All right, gents, this is the point of the show where we get into a little bit of what we saw at the trade deadline. So I'm going to go ahead and throw this up. You see the Mets deadline moves here on the left-hand side underneath. What's not included in here is the Eduardo Escobar trade. I know it's a little bit scrunched. It was a lot. The Mets were active. I apologize. I tried to fit it in. But obviously, on the left here, you can see Scherzer, Verlander, Canna, Leone, and Pham all traded within this trade deadline. You have prospects coming in. Luis Angel Acuna, middle infielder. Drew Gilbert and Ryan Clifford, both outfield prospects to go along with Alex Ramirez, already in your outfield prospect pipeline. Mark Hanna for Justin Jarvis, pitcher already in AAA. Dominic Leone for a surprisingly Los Angeles Angels ranked Jeremiah Jackson, who is a shortstop. And you got Tommy Pham traded to the Arizona Diamondbacks for, guess what? Another shortstop in Jeremy Rodriguez. So that's like six
You
or
forgot
seven
the Robertson
shortstops.
trade.
Your Robertson trade. I forgot the Robertson. Listen, the Robertson trade was like the first major trade to drop. I'm tired. I apologize. I did forget the Robertson trade. Marco Vargas and Ronald Hernandez. Apologize. A middle infielder and catcher, respectively, also coming in alongside the Eduardo Escobar trade, which is Coleman Crow and Landon Marceau off the top of the dome, just because I've been talking about these guys so much, and we've been talking about this trade deadline so much between me and Nelson. We have all these guys ready to be talked about. Matt, I'm not even going to say what you want to start off with You can start off with anything, and you can go on as long of a rant as you want. I'm going to be off camera just for a little bit of it. I need to take care of something, but I want to hear your full-fledged, unfiltered opinions about the trade deadline through and through. Nelson, if you have any rebuttals or anything else to say to Matt alongside the way, because listen, Nelson is our prospect pipeline expert. Nelson has been tracking these prospects through and through. He knows the updated pipeline as it's come out. Literally, there was a list coming out after the trade deadline, a list just recently coming out, and Nelson's fully on top of that. So I want to let you guys drive this conversation. I'm going to leave it to you because I already gave my opinion on this. I know what I got out of this. I love what the Mets did here. This is something you did in a week, and you did what teams achieve to do in 2 to 3, 4 years' time, period. And you look at the Mets farm system in 2022 compared to 2023 now, night and day difference, and you cut losses where losses were needed to be cut. So, Matt, I'm going to let you take the show away. Talk about whoever you want to talk about. I'm not sure if you followed any of these guys, but just about the Mets being sellers in general and the farm system bulk that they just went through, and where these guys that we see on the screen, especially the guys in outfield, Gilbert and Clifford and Luis Angel Acuna, where do they fit into the future Mets going forward in 2024, 2025, 2026?
Yeah, Nelson, at any point, seriously, jump in because I gotta admit, like I've seen highlights from these guys. I haven't genuinely sat down and watched minor league ball this year. I haven't got deep into their numbers. I've really just read scouting profiles. Um, all I can tell you is that, like, first of all, whatever we got for Scherzer is insane. Like, whoever pulled the trigger on that deal should have their head examined. I don't know what you were thinking, giving up. I think what was that? Their number 2 prospect, like Acuna's. So anybody, I don't care if it's like if you're telling me I could trade for a sperm cell of someone with the last name Acuna. I'm not giving that up for Max Scherzer. Like, that's absurd. That's absurd. As much flack as we give Billy Epler, right, and rightfully so, because he's got his fair share of blame this year. Like, the trades he executed, I think, in my opinion, were phenomenal, right? He basically went from having to pay Scherzer and Verlander another like $96 million. He cut that in half. We're paying, well, Cohen's paying like 40, 45 million, 46 million for these guys. I mean, that's basically like eliminating one contract, which is insane. And what's so great about this is that Verlander, we don't have to pay that option year, that $35 million option year of I think in 2025, because it's an option year. It's hypothetical money. You can't trade for hypothetical money. You can't give cash considerations for hypothetical money, right? So Houston is paying that's their problem now. It's not our problem.
I think they did find a way to finagle a way that
with
Met
Scherzer,
sent like extra. No, for Verlander too, they sent a little extra money for next year if he does take the option. So, I mean, they worked it out, but either way, it was a good deal there. I don't have any problems with what happened.
Either way, you owed a lot of money and you're paying basically half of it, which is great, right? Considering we blew it up. People could joke around and laugh, but like, I don't know, man. We have an owner that went for it, and like it didn't work, right? It didn't work, and it sucks. It sucks going down as being the worst team that money could buy. But you know what, guys? 2 years from now, he's going to do it all over again. He's going to go out. He's going to roll out the checkbook. He's not going to care about AAV and short-term. He's not going to care. He doesn't care because Steve wants to see a World Series. Will we see that World Series? I can't speak on that. I don't see in the future. But you know what? He went for it. And like, how many owners in baseball could genuinely say they went for it. Maybe 10, maybe 12 owners, right? Like Steve went for it. And this front office was able to look themselves in the mirror and say, you know what? Like, this didn't work. And instead of doubling down, right? Because we all work, we're all working or we're all in relationships. And like the worst decision you can make is not always the decision itself. It's doubling down on a bad decision, right? So like you could date a girl that sucks and like you break up with her. But the worst thing you could do is put a ring on that girl's finger and like just be like, no, I made the right decision. I was never wrong. We're getting married. We're having kids, right? You know what I mean? So it's the same thing with this. The Mets could have said, no, we're like right there. We're right there. We're 7 games out. All we got to do is maybe get a couple of players, and we would have emptied our farm system. And then what? And then what? Then we're back to spending money again next year. What people need to get through their heads is that like you just showed, I don't know, 6 or 7 names on the bottom of this page, right? Are any of those guys going to pan out? I don't know. Chris doesn't know. Nelson doesn't know. Sandy Alderson doesn't know. Steve, nobody knows, right? But the fact of the matter is you got those guys in your building. They're talented. They seem to have some promise. And you could do one of 2 things. You could develop them and turn them into guys that could produce for you, or you could polish a turd and tell somebody else it's a prize good and give it to someone else at the deadline next year and make yourself better. Because that's what teams do. The Dodgers farm system, the Boston Red Sox, all these, well, I don't know about the Red Sox anymore, but like the Dodgers are notorious for this. All the guys that come out of their system are not necessarily great players, but they paint them to be great players because you have all these people talking about them, and you move those said great players for guys at the deadline that you need. And you know what? The Dodgers did that.
Favorite Ruiz, cough, 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 cough.
The Dodgers did that for 10 years, and it resulted in 1 World Series. But let me tell you guys something. I don't know about any of you. Nelson, you might be old enough. Were you alive for 86?
I was born in December, so I missed it.
You were not alive. You were still in the womb. My point is if you're telling me like my odds are like 1 every 10 years, no problem, man. I'll take that. I'll take that 10 times out of 10. Right? Like it's not about every one of these guys panning out. It's just about you building up that farm system, and maybe you get 1, if you're lucky, 2 of those guys that are contributors in the future. Maybe not even next year. Maybe in 2025, they're genuine contributors, right? But like those are 2 guys you're paying dog shit money for. You're paying $700,000 a year for. So you don't have to hand out a major contract. You could spend your money elsewhere. And some of those other guys that people think are really good, you trade to bring in talent that helps you right now. Like that's what people missed, was that this deadline was not about every one of these guys panning out. Like I couldn't stand, that's such a short-sighted thing to believe. Oh, you think these guys are going to pan out? No, I don't. But I think we're going to turn these guys into starters by trading. That's what I think we're going to do, because that's what smart teams do. You don't, like, listen, if all these guys pan out, then you should win the World Series the next 5 years. But that doesn't happen. The fact is they added to their wealth, right? They added to their wealth. They did the right thing. Like you what I love the most is that you didn't double down. That's all I cared about. Like you got what you were able to get. And like, honestly, the fact that they were able to finagle the Verlander trade made sense because he was actually good. Like he was pitching quite well, not up to his contract, but the money didn't matter because you knew Steve was going to take care of a lot of that. The fact of the matter of like his numbers were solid. They were good numbers. But Scherzer, oh my God, I don't know how we did that. Like that's ridiculous. We literally pushed a burnt down car up a hill and sold it to someone for a bicycle, which is like crazy because one thing moves, one thing doesn't. My analogies are awful. I'm an idiot, but
Matt, your analogies are hilarious, and they're keeping us all entertained tonight. It's absolutely phenomenal. Before I let Nelson go on these moves, it's like a work of art, to be honest with you. Jay says the worst team money could rent. That's actually a really good.
good
That's
point.
actually a really good statement, Jay. It is the worst team that money could rent because these guys are out of here now, and yeah, Steve Cohen pretty much rented them. Just like Nelson's family, Steve Cohen bought himself a farm. That is hilarious. Stevie, shout out you. I love that. That is actually a phenomenal comment. I agree. Talking farm on the farm with Nelson. Shout out him. Go check that out. He is on a farm, literally.
Special episode tomorrow.
Special episode tomorrow too. Stay tuned. Subscribe to at Amish Country Mets fan. I'll display it here in just a second. Talking farm on the farm. If you're interested in anything Mets farm system, subscribe to Nelson's channel. Without a doubt, you won't be disappointed. And he says, always the dating analogies with Mr. Matt. Kenny also is laughing at us, making fun of your analogies as well, Matt. We're jealous of you, Jay. I'm sorry. We are jealous of you. 86 was glorious, he said. We are jealous of you. I am jealous. Nelson, to what Matt just said, plus what you see on the screen, give me your synopsis. We've already given our synopsis on the Interstate Mets report, but let's give it here as well. What do you think?
Well, I mean, I've gone over this 50 billion times. I love the deals. If you've been watching, you know I've been on the sell bandwagon since like early June. I hopped on that thing early. And I couldn't have asked for more. I thought we would sell. I never thought we'd be able to get rid of all those guys. I wanted to. I just didn't think it would actually happen. Then to get the level of talent that we actually got for them, I mean, if you have a problem with that, then I really don't know how to spin it for you. These guys are all excellent. I can pull it up now. Baseball America redropped their an updated list today. MLB Pipeline has one coming out tomorrow. They have Angel Acuna at 1, Drew Gilbert at 2, Ryan Clifford at 3, Jet Williams 4, Colin Houck 5, Mauricio 6, Parada 7, Vassell 8, Tidwell 9, and Christian Scott jumps up to number 10. So that's out of from the deadline itself. You got 3 guys that jumped into your top 10 and took the top 3 spots according to Baseball America.
Two things I would like to point out of what you just said in the top 10. Number 1, Kevin Parada was number 1 before. He jumps to number 7. Number 2, Mike Vassell's not there anymore. Who's the pitcher that rounds that out? It's Christian Scott, which who nobody is talking about.
Oh, Vassell is there.
Nobody.
Vassell's at number 8.
Oh, he's 8? Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
okay, well, Vassell's there, and then he almost just pitched a no-hitter from what I saw yesterday.
Yeah,
and then you have Christian Scott. And Christian Scott was late teens before that, right?
I think he was even lower than that. He was unranked at one point. Like this guy came out of nowhere. And
Christian Scott is a name that we have to be watching out for. Yeah. I'm not sure how much of you watch of him, but like him at number 10 right now is surprising.
I did forget to say this too, that like, and I don't know if you're going to say this, Nelson, but like people also need to stop talking about the positions that we got. Like every good player that comes out of the farm is a shortstop, a center fielder, or like I don't know, like a catcher. Like, don't worry about the position. If they're 18 years old or they're 20 years old, the position doesn't matter. Because like growing up, the most athletic kids on the baseball diamond were catchers, shortstops, and center fielders. Like you could move those guys around. That really doesn't matter. So I'm sorry, Nelson. That's just something I want, because I saw that so much and it was like so short-sighted.
Yeah, no, I definitely have drove that point home over and over again. I saw the complaints that we didn't get pitching and why do we have 20 shortstops and why do we have 10 catchers? It doesn't matter. These guys are athletic. These guys can move and these guys can be traded. Like you pointed out before, it's not like every single one of them is going to make the New York Mets. If you think that's going to happen, you're too far gone for me to explain this to you. It's just not. If it does, then like Matt said, we probably win like countless World Series in a row because we'd be in great shape. But yeah, some of these guys will get moved to different positions. Some of these guys will get moved to different teams. Yeah, I loved what we did at the deadline. And just to point to the point that I said earlier or a little bit ago that, or not the point, the comment I made that have a special talking farm on the farm tomorrow. The plan is Keith from the Shea and Sons podcast is going to the Brooklyn Cyclones game tomorrow, and he's gonna shout out or hop on the Talking Farm on this farm show while he's at the game, and we're gonna talk a little prospects while he's out there watching them. So he's gonna get a first eye look at some of these guys. I've been watching. I actually watched some of the Cyclones game today, and the Rumble Ponies. I always forget their name because they used to just be the Binghamton Mets. I watched some of their game today too. I've been pretty in tune with it. Love what I see out of these kids so far. Acuna's speed is amazing. Clifford's power is something to look out for. Like you said, Gilbert, he's pretty damn good out in center field. So yeah, we got a lot of talent, and we got our guys that were here are performing super well too. Jet Williams, my favorite prospect, probably out of all of them. Like, I think I still rank Acuna ahead of him, but Jet Williams is my favorite prospect. That dude's gonna make some noise. Christian Scott, like we said, great. Been doing great. Vassal's been doing great. Almost pitched a no-hitter. Blade Tidwell's down there too, pitching very well. So pitching's starting to come around. We got all these talented athletes. I mean, things are looking up. And like I said, they may not all end up Mets, but they could very well net us a star, whether that be a Juan Soto or whoever becomes available. So just watch out for that. That's all I got to say.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. Shout out Nelson, Talking Farm on the Farm. New episode is tomorrow at Amish Country Mets Fan on YouTube. Subscribe to his channel. Listen, Mets fans, at this juncture of the season, if you're still watching the Major League team, I'm with you. I am too. I'm also into with the prospects, but not as much as Nelson is. If you want prospect coverage, go to his channel at Amish Country Mets Fan. He is watching all these guys, the Drew Gilberts of the world, the Luis Angel Acuñas, the Ryan Cliffords, the Margot Vargases, you name it, whoever we just got versus, and in addition to whoever we already had, aka Jet Williams, Alex Ramirez. He is watching them, so go ahead and give him a subscribe. Do not forget to do that. Let's see. Jay says DeGrom was a shortstop as well coming out. So the positions really do not matter, to be honest with you. I completely agree. Jeremiah Jackson, Colin Houck, Marco Vargas, Luis Angel Acuna, Ronnie Mauricio, all these middle infield prospects. Guess what? Guess how many middle infield positions there are in the Mets moving forward? Only 2. And Lindor is going to be here for another 6 or 7 years. So guess what? I was going to say, guess what? Only 1. So all these guys, if they're not going to be in here, they're going to be traded or they're going to move to a different position. And I think the only viable option to me and what I'm looking at is that Luis Angel Acuna plays second base. McNeil, not traded, moves out to the outfield because Luis Angel Acuna is the first guy that's ready in line for that position. So that's how I'm foreseeing it. That's how I'm forecasting it. It could move a different way. I don't know. We'll see. Stevie Mac, I'm all aboard the Jet Williams train right now as well. To Nelson's point as well, that is Nelson's favorite prospect, and Stevie Mac agrees. Nick says Mariano Rivera was a shortstop as well. Shout out, Nick. I appreciate you tuning in. Thank you so much. I appreciate all the new listeners today. Jay as well. Jay's been active here today. Shout out, Jay. given what we just said, and I agree with everything that you guys said here on this slide, gentlemen. I mean, Justin Jarvis, I mean, we might see him get brought up at the tail end of this year just to see what he's got. Vassell, maybe give him an appearance or two just to get their feet wet while maintaining their rookie statuses post August 19th. It's not going to hinder that. Maybe, unless they don't want to hurt their trade value, who knows? Maybe they get their feet wet in the major leagues instead of having to see McGill, Peterson, Carrasco finish out the season. Justin Jarvis is a name to look out for. We all know Ronnie Mauricio is as well. And then Mike Vassell as well, who just had a phenomenal outing in AAA just last night. Matt, as it pertains to anything prospects on this list that we see, do you have anything else to round out your thoughts on here?
No, I feel like I really went through it all. Like I said, Nelson's got a much better handle on this than I do. I don't really get a chance to watch too much minor league ball. But overall, like this it sucks. It sucks that we had to sell. None of us, as much as Nelson was beating the drum first, and then we all followed. Like, yeah, we had to sell, but like nobody wanted to see that. That shit sucks. It absolutely sucks. Like we came in with high expectations and they failed, but at the end of the day, like, yes, I'm very glad that we didn't double down. I'm very glad we made the best of an awful situation. And I also don't read too much into like they're not competing next year. That to me is bullshit. Like, and if that
wait, hold on. That's the last topic we have tonight. Cohen's 2024 comments. I'm sorry. I know it's getting late, Nelson. I see the look in your eyes. Matt, give me your Cohen's comments, Epler's comments, and what we saw from Scherzer. We have to talk about it while we're here on the post game. I want to hear your thoughts about it. We said it already. What do you think?
Scherzer, like, I think Scherzer was being honest, like, but I think he also kind of maybe not stretched the truth, but like went in with his own mindset. Like, do I think they're going to run up the payroll next year? No, they're not going to do that. They have guys to pay off. I don't think they're going to do that. But like, if you think for a second that Steve Cohen's going to roll out some slapdick team for a year, like that's not going to happen. That's not what he's going to do. He's going to roll out a competitive team. Is it going to be a team with high expectations that people project to win the World Series? No, I think Epler was spot on. The gambling odds on them to win the World Series next year are not going to be high, but they're not going to be.
They go after Ohtani? Oh, is Ohtani in the card?
I think 100%. Listen, I think Ohtani goes wherever Ohtani wants to go. Like this whole idea that Ohtani's not going to go to the East Coast or he's not going to go to New York, that's fucking bullshit. Ohtani, I'm sorry, excuse my language. Ohtani is going to. Good. He's going to go wherever he wants. The only people that know where Ohtani's going next year is Shohei Ohtani, maybe his agent, and probably his mom. Like, those are the three people that know where he's going to play next year. And honestly, they probably don't even know yet. Like, we could very well get him. Do I think we're going to? I agree with Nelson. No, I don't think we're going to. Like, I think it's going to be really boring, and I think he goes to the Dodgers. Like, gun to my head, that's what I think it's going to be. But, like, to tell me that we're not going to be competitive, we're not going to go after Ohtani. Why? Because Andy Martino and his stupid Beatles dolls said that he's dead. Dude, come on, please. No, Steve is going to bid. Steve's going to bid just like he bids on everyone else. And the only reason we didn't go after Judge was because he had a handshake agreement with the Steinbrenners that he wasn't going to go after him, right? Like, that was what we read, and that's what happened. We never submitted an offer to Aaron Judge. I think we're going to go after Ohtani. I don't think we'll get him, but I think we'll go after him. And I hope that we do. And I will say this. If they go after Ohtani, the whole idea of we're not going to run the payroll up, yes, they are. Because why would you go after Ohtani and not go for it every single year? There's just no world where that happens. So it's a wait and see game. I think they're gonna take this offseason similar to how they took last offseason, where they're probably gonna try to hopefully lock up Alonzo early because he's already on their payroll. He's already there. You could talk to him. You don't have to wait till the end of the season. You could hypothetically, like, we're gonna miss the playoffs, right? They could hypothetically bring him back in 2 weeks later, like while the NLDS is going on, and they could try to hammer at it. Like, there's nothing stopping them from doing that. So I would love to see them do that and then go after Ohtani, because also you have to like think about this. Like, Ohtani is going to go to a place where he wants to know you're committed to winning. Well, not signing Pete Alonso and leaving it up to chance doesn't really show that you're totally. I'm not saying that we're not committed to winning, but like in Shohei Ohtani's eyes, he's going to say, well, that guy's a superstar. He hits 40 home runs for you every year. He's always in the home run derby. Why didn't you lock him up before you came to me? Like, you're
Matt,
trying to, yeah.
let me do you one better. Let me pitch you two of your countrymen on the same team together in the same rotation with Senga and Yamamoto. Ohtani and Yamamoto in one off season. What do you think about that?
My mic was muted. You just missed my Willie just hit the top of this table. No, I'm kidding.
That's hot. That we need that. That's good.
No,
Yeah.
Yamamoto.
Can you imagine that?
That would be incredible. Listen, like let's see. I think there's a lot of things we heard. We heard that Billy Epler was out in Japan twice this season to scout Yamamoto. I think like part of getting Senga was not just to get Senga. I think it was to maybe kind of lay a foundation out there and show the Japanese guys that, like, we're serious. We're willing to invest in you. We're willing to pay that postage fee. We're willing to pay well over asking price because we believe in how you guys develop your players. We believe in what you do. We believe in your discipline and the whole 9 yards. So listen, man, there's so many directions they could go in, but if you're a Mets fan and you're super worried about 2024, like you shouldn't be. Are they going to win the World Series next year? No, probably not. Are they going to have a massive payroll? No. But like, they tried something, right? They tried signing 40-year-old pitchers that won a Cy Young, and it didn't work. And that's okay. Like, it's okay to swing for the fences and fail. I'd rather be us than be the New York Yankees with no direction, right? Or the Cincinnati Reds with all these young players and no pitchers, and those young players knowing damn well we're never going to get any pitching. Like, this is what it's going to be. We're going to be a one and done team every year. So I don't think we're in a bad position. It sucks. This year sucked, but it'll be okay in the future. But you got to have some patience. And like, honestly, if you're like, I don't want to call anybody out on Twitter, but like the morons telling me that this was better when the Wilpons owned the team, like, dude, come on. It's not even close. It's not even close. And Nelson, maybe one day in the future, we could do a talking Mets on the farm, but like all three of us could be on the farm. And like, are any of your pigs for sale? Because I'm really trying to convince my wife that we could put a pig pen in the. She's like totally disgusted by pigs, but I think they're adorable. I'm not a bacon guy. Like, I don't want to kill it. I just want it to run around and stuff. I think they're really adorable and funny. She's super grossed out, but I'm thinking we get my dog a little brother or sister, and that's how I do it. Like, we just go to do this show on the farm, and we're all talking, maybe drinking some Miller Lights and like lawn chairs. And I just so happen to come home with like a prize hog, and I'm like, oh, nothing else we could do. It's in our backyard,
We could make that happen. I don't see why not.
Look at this. We're making deals on the Mets postgame show. This is legendary. Where else are you going to get this kind of content? Oh my God. It's always a good time with you guys. I love it. I absolutely love it. Man, I appreciate everybody tuning in today. I appreciate Nelson. I appreciate Matt. Shout out James tuning in. Alvarez bats fifth in that lineup to go along with a potential Lindor, Nemo, Alonso, Alvarez, Otani lineup with Acuna, Gilbert, and whoever else rounds it out. I think that's going to be exciting moving forward. I agree with the Otani situation. We're not going to make any sort of assumptions. Otani goes where he goes. He's going to have full-fledged, full reign of wherever he goes. He's going to have his preferences. So it's not like the Mets. The Mets can send the highest offer and outbid the whoever he chooses potentially by however many $1 million, and that's just what it is. Nobody knows where Otani's mind's at. He's a unicorn. Nobody knows where his mind's at. He'll be accepted wherever he chooses, right? It's just that sort of deal. I see Max says jersey sales are gaining. Jersey sales and gaining the huge Japanese market would basically pay for Otani in itself in New York. You're not wrong, Stevie Mac. You are not wrong. I bet you Steve Cohen's thinking along those lines as well. I bet you he is. We'll see though. We'll see what happens. Otani is a guy that I don't like to think about with the Mets offseason plans, just because I just like there's just like high volatility with him. Like you just don't know where he's gonna go. So like penciling him in as a potential guy in the roster is just kind of useless. I like to look at guys like Yamamoto, Urias, etc. to fill in the rotation spots. Maybe even a Corbin Burns trade. We'll see what happens there. But Kenny Fry says, "Good show, guys. Great show, guys. I appreciate you, Kenny. Thank you so much for tuning in. I definitely appreciate you and everybody else tuning in, guys. Listen, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. Nelson, Matt, we'll start with Nelson. Any sort of last minute comment you want to make? This has been a great post game show. This has been nostalgic. I definitely want to do this more with you guys. I think we should make the Three Amazin Amigos a weekly or maybe even a bi-weekly if that's what it takes with our busy schedules kind of thing. So let me know what you guys think. And Nelson, let me hear your final thoughts before we sign off.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely down to do this more often. It's always a good time. Thanks for everybody that watched. I don't really have a lot more to say. We've touched on all these topics so much, whether it be on the Interstate Mets Report or the Roundtable podcast with Talking Rob and Hayden. We've definitely gone over it over and over and over and over again. People are probably tired of listening to it, but hey, I appreciate you if you keep watching. The only guy I didn't see, maybe it's because we're not in our usual time slot. I didn't see our buddy Yamamoto in the comments tonight. I missed,
Yoshinobu was in
yeah,
the out of the box sports Kenny Fry with
I
Frank
did see
Fleming. I
that.
saw him there
Yeah,
earlier. I didn't see him here today.
yeah. So we'll see. Hopefully he shows up on Friday. Um, we gotta try to convince him to come over to Queens. I think that's our job with him always in the comments. But anyways, no, good show. Going way back to where we started. Mets win. That's so nice to see a Mets win, regardless of how bad the season's gone. So they took a series too, so that's pretty rare. They haven't done that. We got who?
That's
Atlanta
shocking.
next. We got Atlanta next. That's probably not not gonna go too great. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, shout out James. I see your comment. I told you Lindor was gonna take off eventually. He does what he does. It's his thing. Um, I appreciate the fact that you've laid off on the Lindor hate, while some others have doubled down on it, regardless of the fact that the dude is like
No name naming. No name naming.
no. I am not naming names. Um, it rhymes. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm good. But yeah, it was a good show. Everybody is watching. Have a great night. Always great to talk to you, Matt, and you, Chris.
Matt, go ahead. Take it away, buddy.
Yeah, I don't know if you fellas were paying attention, but all this talk about hogs and prospects got me all bothered, and I dropped my computer off the bar. So sorry about that. No, I mean we really should try and make this a weekly thing. I haven't had a chance to pump out as many blogs as I'd like to. I've been a little busy with work and a lot of other stuff going on, but yeah, look out for Nelson. I don't think you're not a big football guy. I know Chris is pumping out a bunch of Giant stuff. I mean, it's different sport, but come this fall, sunny days in Flushing, we're going to be doing a Sunday show. We're going to figure either a Saturday night or a Sunday show. I got to figure out how to do this with YouTube, but I'm not as proficient as Chris. Chris is like Elon Musk, and I'm at like the Helen Keller level of using technology. So we'll figure it out. But no, guys, thank you for the time. This was great. Let's try to do this more often. This is awesome. Thanks again.
No, definitely. Like Matt said, I'm going to definitely try to do some NFL content. Nelson, you're more than welcome. I'm talking Giants. I'm talking Knicks. I'm talking Rangers on my channel. So make sure you go ahead and subscribe to my channel. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter. I appreciate it. This is something that I enjoy doing. It's a fun hobby for me. I enjoy talking sports, putting it out there for the world to see. Whoever agrees with me, great. Whoever doesn't can definitely express their opinions. We'll keep it in a respectful manner, and we'll go about it that way. And like I said, I respect everybody's opinions, regardless of whether it's you all or whoever else is tuning in. I like to listen to everybody's opinion because this is sports is not really objective. There is some times where it is objective, but for the most part, it is subjective, and everybody has a voice and opinion. And I like listening to everybody's voice and opinion. So, with that being said, follow my Twitter and Instagram at CPNY Sports. Subscribe in the bottom right hand corner if you're listening on my channel. If you're not listening on my channel, if you're listening on Nelson's channel, hop over to mine and vice versa. Subscribe to each other's channels. This is not the first and this is not the last post-game show. And we have the Interstate Mets report coming up in 2 days on Friday as well. I'm sure amongst a plethora of things that are going to be coming out in the next coming months between the Mets and Nelson. I hear you're starting to get a little bit on the Giants, so maybe we can get you in on there as well. So I appreciate it. Drop a like, hit that thumbs up. I appreciate you for listening. Hit that thumbs up. It means a lot to us. Appreciate all the comments today as well. Hit that subscribe button to all three. Amish Country Mets fan at CPNY Sports and at Flushing Sunny 41. Most importantly, the Mets win tonight 4-3. Take the series from the Chicago Cubs. Definitely good to see. Like I said, guys, it's going to be a rough next couple of months. We'll see how it goes. But this has been the Three Amazin Amigos Mets post-game show. I appreciate you all, Nelson and Matt. As always, we're here to provide the content. And let's go, Mets. I appreciate you all.
Let's go, Mets.
Let's go, Mets.
We're coming
back. Thank you for watching the Three Amazin Amigos Mets post-game show. Your favorite Mets post-game show. Make sure you hit that like, comment, and subscribe button, and we'll see you the next time.